Hey all, we are now starting our final project for the semester. For this project, we are modeling an existing row home and we're proposing some renovations to it, all in Revit, so you can create a set of construction documents for your renovation proposal. We will not even get into doing schematic design for this. These are really concept drawings. That's about as far as you usually get in studio. Once you're actually working at a firm, you get into the level of detail that would be considered more appropriate for construction. But for now, we just want to learn some Revit basics, know how to model, know how to make things in existing phase versus new phase. So this particular building is over on Butchers Hill. If you go to the Revit listing, which will be on the project sheet, you can look at photos of it, which are all in here. The other really nice thing about this listing is that it has a 3D walkthrough. So if you click on 3D walkthrough, you'll get a good idea of how the space looks inside. One thing really kind of odd about it is that it has a spiral staircase. That's not really a code way to get to the next floor. How do you get your furniture to the next floor? I don't know. A little bit of a disaster there. But you can kind of walk around inside the 3D walkthrough. And then I also picked this one because it has floor plans. So that makes it infinitely easier for us to recreate in Revit. So that site is here on there for your reference. In addition, Google Maps is always our friends. We can find things on Google Maps, do brick counts to figure out heights. We can look at the site around it to help inform us about what this site looks like when we're modeling it. This very first tutorial is about creating the site around it. So to start out with, we need some more CAD for this area that we don't have right now. So I'm going to go to a site called cadmapper.com. It's free to make an account on here, so please go ahead and do that. I'm going to sign in with my account. And what this basically does is it lets you search for an area in the city, and it'll give you a CAD or a 3D file of that. So oddly enough, we're actually not starting in Revit. We're going to be starting in Rhino, which you all already know pretty well. So over here, I'm going to search for, hang on, Google decided to turn on music. Hey, Google, stop. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm searching for 2001 East Fairmont Mount Avenue, and I want it to be in Baltimore, so that's here. Okay, it doesn't do a great job of narrowing in. I think we're right in the middle here, so I'm going to bring in this because I don't need all that. And I'm going to zoom in, and our building is this one right on the corner. I want a little bit more site context than that. So let's try to get the corner across the street. So our building is in the middle here. I want to get some of the building across the street. I want to get a little bit of like that alley behind where we end, and I'll get just a tad of what's across the street as well. So you'll notice that there's like a kind of an odd situation here, how CADMapper is showing this. In reality, it looks like there's like parking on this side of the street, and then this is your actual street. So we might have to modify that a little bit when we make this. There's always some back and forth between what is real in Google Maps versus what's real in CADMapper. So that's about how big I'm going to make my file. Over here, I want to make sure I have Rhino 5. For 3D buildings, it's setting a false height of 7 meters if no 3D data is available. So everything is in meters for this site, which is kind of annoying. I have to look up what the conversion is. So if I do, it's about, what is it, meters to feet? Meters to feet. So it's 3 feet, 3.37 inches. So if I have 7 meters, we're talking about 22 feet. So generally it's making buildings 22 feet or 2 stories-ish if they don't know how high they are. So that you be aware that if it brings in 3D buildings, it might be not a real height, and that's okay. It's fine for what we're doing. So I'm going to bring this over to get a little more of that corner. Okay. Other thing, we do want topography in there. It's going to give us contours every 4 meters. We're going to want something a little bit more refined than that, but we can change that later. For road geometry, you're going to have outlines in here. For highways, keep it at 10, major roads 8, minor roads 5, paths 2. So that means that your paths are going to be around 6 feet. Your minor roads are going to be around 15-ish feet, etc. So once I have this all set, I just click on Create File. And it's thinking, I think it's going to take about 30 seconds. Let's see what it comes up with. Okay, and here is the view it's giving me of my area. Great. So I'm going to download this, and it's going to show up over here. I can right click and go to Show in Folder. Then if I double click on here, I need to extract all, extract to extract my files. Okay, so now if I go back to downloads, I have my files here. Double click here and I can open up this file. So this should open up in whatever version of Revit, or sorry, Rhino you have. So to start out with, I'm noticing here that some things look off, like I'm missing topography for over here, which is not ideal. So I'm actually going to go back and redo that one more time because I'm not sure why that happened. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to make my area a little bit bigger. I can always crop it down in Rhino. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just to make sure that I get everything there. So I'm going all the way to North Wolf Street there. I'm getting that whole block in. Okay, so this is a bigger area than I need, but I'm going to bring that into Rhino and then crop it down. All my other settings are still the same. I'm going to click on Create File. Should take 30 seconds to make this file, and let's make sure that the topography looks like. So it looks like in here I have a topo over there. I'm not sure why that wasn't in there last time. And then I'm going to click on Download. So again, right click, Show in Folder. Double click on here, Extract All, Extract. And then if I go back to Downloads, it's going to be this one. And let me open this up. So hopefully that'll fix our issue where it didn't show the topography underneath the building across the street. Okay, great. So now I have a topography over there, topography over here, fabulous. So I do not want all this area though. It's a little bit too much for me. And also, like, I want to start understanding what these different lines are. And right now everything's the same color. So my layers, I'm going to start out by making things different colors just so I can see what they are. So I'm going to make my buildings blue. I'm going to make my park spaces green. So you can see the outlines of those parks it has defined in there. I'm going to make the outlines in pink. So it looks like outlines means roads on this map. I'm going to make my contours orange. So you can see there's just a few contours in there. And actually, I don't even want those contours, so I'm just going to delete that layer. I'm going to make new contours. Okay, and finally, this topography, which we're also not going to really use, but I'm going to make that just a light gray so it lightens up a little bit. So I can kind of see what I'm working with here. Now this is more area than I want, so I'm going to trim it down. So I'm going to create a new layer. Call this one Trim. Double click here to get on the trim layer. I'm going to get my rectangle and I'm going to come from maybe here over to about here. So our building is this one here, so I really don't need like a whole lot of area around it. I just need a little bit of area around it. So maybe it'll come this big. Okay, I'm now going to extrude that in 2 dimensions. So extrude curve, both sides, yes, bring that up. I can put this in shaded view just so I can see what's going on a little bit better. So everything around this, I'm just going to delete. So I'm going to select this, type in trim, And I'm going to select everything around it to trim. Sometimes it's easier to do this in top view. Okay. And I don't think these trimmed out, so I'm just going to zoom in, make sure those get trimmed. That didn't trim. So I'm kind of zooming in, making sure I have like a clean edge on all that. Okay. I then am going to click and drag to the right. And that's going to allow me to delete the other stuff that's outside here. And then finally, you'll notice that the topography did not trim. That's because the topography is a mesh. And meshes don't get trimmed by trim. So I have to type in a different command called mesh split. Then I'm going to select my object. Actually, I'm going to leave the mesh alone for just a second. So I want to get my topo lines from this. I didn't like the level of contours it was giving me, so I'm going to give myself new contours. So I'm going to create a new layer and call this new contours. I'm going to make this orange. Hit OK. Okay, and then I'm going to delete this. Well, yeah, don't need it at the moment. Still have that line there, great. Okay, so I'm going to select this and type in contour. And then it wants my contour base point. So my base point is going to be the lower corner, which looks like it's over here. And it's going to ask me for a direction perpendicular to contour planes. That's like, that's going to be straight up. So it's making my contours going straight up. So I'm going to come into my front view, click straight up, and it's going to ask me for the distance between contours. Here's where I need to make sure the units are right, because I didn't do that yet. So I'm going to type in units. And it looks like I'm still in meters. I don't want to be in meters. I'm going to change this to feet. Hit OK. It's going to ask me, do I want to scale my model? I'm going to say yes. And I just want to double check that this all is at the right size. So I'm going to do DIST for distance. I'm going to check how wide this road is. 26 feet. Yep, that seems about right. So we're all good here. Okay, so let me go over the contour thing one more time. So I'm going to type in contour. Select this as my object for contour. Click my base point as the low point over here. Then I'm going to come straight up in front view for my perpendicular direction, and then 2 feet for my distance between planes. So now you'll see I have contour lines, and they're just much more fine than what I had before. So it's a little bit easier to deal with. Okay, now that I have done that, I don't really need the mesh in there at all. I'm going to, I'm going to trim that out. I come into my top view. I'm again going to extrude this to both sides. I forgot to do extrude to both sides, so I can also just move it down. So I'm going to turn project off and just move this, make sure it's going straight down. Okay, I'm going to do a mesh split. It's going to ask your object to split. I can select that, and then I'm going to select that as my cutting object. I can delete all these. And then I'm going to trim the lines that I don't need here. So type in trim. I'm going to delete all of these. And if it's not touching that line, it won't trim, so then I just delete them after. So I'm going to come through and delete these. It looks like I missed one thing to trim. I missed this building, so I'm going to trim that out. Okay, delete those, delete this. Okay, so now I should have a pretty cleaned up file. This little slice of building I'm just going to get rid of because it's so small. And you'll notice some things seem odd, like here. Remember that I set the road length, and obviously like this road is actually thinner than what I set it as, because the alley probably doesn't go, the alley needs to be within that building. So I'm going to come to perspective view, put on project, and I'm going to move these lines forward. Type an M and move them forward so that they're kind of in front of that building. So I'm assuming the alley doesn't go through the building. Same thing here. It looks like this garage goes like past this a little bit. I'm going to leave this alone for now. You're not really going to see it in our file, so I think it's okay. Over here, right now it's defining this as a separate area, whereas if I look back at here, it looks like this is really the parking area and the street. It's not really like a separate parking area, so I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to have this be one area. So I'm going to just take go to my outlines, make a line from here to here, and then actually I should turn off project for that. Sorry. So I'm going to make a line from here over here, and then I'm going to trim that out, and then join those. Okay, so that's all one thing. This green for the park looks like it's not actually on the park right now. It's kind of offset. So for that, I'm going to just move this over. And I'm not too worried about these things being in the right place spatially up and down, because as you'll see, we're going to be kind of redrawing them in Revit. I just want to give myself some better guidelines to look at. Okay, so this is not looking as terrible. I'd say the same thing for this park. Right now, this park looks like it's not in the right place. So I'm going to move this down. Because our park shouldn't be starting before our street starts. Okay, so now I think I'm fairly happy with this file. It's a guide file. It's not my end all be all, but it'll work for my site. This again is our building over here, and I think right now the garage is showing as part of this building, but really there's a patio and then our garage is over here. So I think that's really part of our building. So like if we look at over here, let's see. Oh no, I'm wrong. That is a garage for that other building. That is really interesting. Okay, so our property will end here, and then that's the garage of the next building over. Interesting. Okay. So I'm now going to bring this, say this is a DWG, so I can use it in Revit. So I'm going to save this file in general. And then we're doing a file, select this file, export selected, and save this as a DWG. Our 12 lines now should be fine. Hit OK. All right, now we're going to open up Revit. So I typed in Revit. I have Revit 2021. You might have something newer. That's fine. The versions really don't change that much in between. The one thing you need to watch out for is that Revit will not allow you to back save. So if I make something in 2023 and I try to save it with you and you were in 2021, you will not be able to open it. And really there's nothing to do but upgrade your file at that point, which is a pain. So just be aware of that. It's always, if you're working with other people, you want to make sure that you're all working in a similar version. You don't want to be working a newer version than them, or they'll have to re-download Revit and everything. So I'm going to go here to make a new model. I want Imperial Architectural Template and hit OK. This first tutorial is just about the site. That's what I'm going to worry about. So to start out with, I'm going to go to Insert, and then I'm going to click on Import CAD. And here I'm going to navigate to wherever I saved that DWG file. So for me, I saved it on my desktop. Some of these are important down here. Your import units should be whatever you have in Rhino. So mine was in feet. I can double check that here if I type in units, feet, great. So you want to make sure that this is in feet. And then the positioning auto origin to internal origin should be fine. place at level 1, orient to views. This is all good. So hit, once you have that site selected, hit open. And so you'll notice it got placed over here. That's because it was slightly not at my origin in Revit. So the first thing I want to do is navigate and place this somewhere that's more useful to me in this site model. I'm just using this as a site model. This is not like a specific surveyed civil model with exact heights or anything. So I feel pretty comfortable moving it and changing the heights. The one thing I do want to keep in mind, and actually maybe I'd be better off looking at the site plan here. The one thing I do want to keep in mind is that if I want to rotate this to kind of make this straight, and when I do that, I want to know what the old real north was so that I can create an accurate north arrow. So to that end, what is real north on this page? So let's look at Google Maps a second. So, okay. So our building, the front of it faces north. So that's easy enough. So this is our north elevation. And right now it's slightly off axis, but okay. So if I'm looking here, we're actually oriented not badly. We're just slightly off of north. So I'm going to make, I'm going to unpin this. So if you click it, you'll notice the little pin shows up. I'm going to unpin it. I'm going to create an annotation line. So an annotation line is something that only exists in this particular view. It's not a 3D object. It's just like something you draw on top. So for this, I'm going to have a little line here because I want to make sure I don't lose what true north is when I rotate this plan. So this I know is north. And I'm going to group all this. That's just so I don't forget. Okay, so now I'm going to rotate this whole thing along with this so that the front of the building is actually perpendicular to my views. So I'm going to click on the rotate button, hit place, click on here, and then bring that straight. So now I can see that's all straight. So that'll make it a lot easier to model my building. And you'll notice that my north is now slightly, it slightly looks like it's slightly east, right? So even though my building, my project north is straight up and down, in reality, north is going to be even a little bit further rotated. And that's just something for me to keep in mind. All right, so next thing I want to do is check on, move the overall horizontal location of this. So I'm going to select this, type in MV, as in like motor vehicle, MV for move, and move this from here over to here. I'm going to, I want my building to be kind of in the center of where these 4 little things are. These are elevations. So they're defining what elevations there are of my building. I'm going to move this up just a little bit. That's actually probably pretty good. Okay. So now I have that in there. And then the last thing I want to do is figure out what the real height of this should be to make sense for my building. So to do that, I'm going to make a section. So I'm going to go to View, Section. I'm going to come very close to the side of my building. I'm going to right-click on that thing I just made and click on Go to View. So when I do that, I can see where that building setup is. And if I make a detail line here just to check, you'll notice that my height is 22 feet. So don't trust the heights of these buildings. That is just something that was put in as a placeholder by the CAD Mapper software. Okay, so I want level 1 to be at the floor level 1 of my building. So I'm going to go over here to my street level view. If you look, you'll notice that there are a couple steps before I get to level 1 of my building. So there's 1, 2, 3, really 4 steps before I'm at level 1 of my building. It's 4 steps up. I don't know exactly what these steps are. I'm going to estimate that they're each 7 inches. So I'm going to assume that street level is going to be 7 times 4 down. So if I do 7 times 4, So I would assume it's 28 inches down. So I'm going to make one more level here. So all I do to do that is I select the level, type in CO for copy, click it, and come down 28 inches, hit enter. I want to be able to see this better, so if I click on here, I can click on this little thing, and that'll bring this down. I'm going to click on here and rename the street. Okay, and then I want the corner of my building, so this corner here, to be right at that point. So I'm going to select this, type in MV for move, and I'm going to move from here down to there. Okay, doing all right. So let's now see what it looks like. Did it move in other views? Nope, we're all good. Okay, I also want to set these levels about right while I'm here. So it's always hard to guess the height of a building. The way I generally do it is I count bricks. So I would count out 1, 2. So actually, let's check if this how high these steps are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And so it looks like 11 and a little bit more. So let's say it's 11 and a half. So a standard brick is 2 1/4 inches. This might be an older brick, so it might be slightly smaller. There's different kinds of bricks. But if we assume it's 2 1/2, because there's also room for mortar. So if I do, where did this go? Okay, so if I do 2.5 times 11, that gives me 27.5 inches. So that's pretty darn close to what we estimated for the height of that first floor being 28 inches. So that's another way to kind of check yourself. So when I did the brick count on this, and you can recount, I could have been wrong, but I had it at being about 10 feet per level. So I'm going to come over here. I already have level 2 at 10 feet. I'm going to copy up and make a level 3 that's 10 feet up. So to do that, I select it, type in CO, come straight up, type in 10 feet, hit enter. I'm going to change this to be level 3. I'm going to make one more, type in CO, 10 feet, and call this roof. Great. Okay, so now I have those levels set. Getting your level set is just something important to do at the beginning. And then you'll notice that there's a crop box here. I just brought the crop box down. All right, so we still haven't actually made our site yet. So let's go ahead and do that. And back to my site plan. And I'm going to go to the tab over here called Massing and Site. I haven't saved yet. I'm going to click save and save this quick. So this is going to be 2001, this is Fairmont Ave. Okay, so I'm going to start out by creating a topo surface. So under Mask and Site, click on Topo Surface. And then you're going to click on Create from Import, select Import Instance. I'm going to select this CAD I imported in. I'm going to deselect everything except topography. I thought I called it new topography, but I called it new contours. Oh, you know what? It looks like my contour lines are not on new contour. It looks like they are on my trim layer. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to be selecting trim instead. Sorry about that. So I'm going to click on trim, hit OK. One thing I want to watch out for, and I'm going to look back in 3D view. To get to 3D view, I click over here, is that right now it's selecting these points, which are at the very corners, as part of my model, and I don't want it to. That only happened because of the trim mistake I made. So I'm going to click on Simplify Surface. I'm going to, nope, I don't want to do that. Set Viewer, Modify. So I think if I click on this, I can delete that. I can delete that one. Yep, so I'm just selecting the points and deleting them so that they aren't a part of my topo. And because I made my topo bigger than I needed it to, it shouldn't matter that I'm losing those little corners there. Okay, so now I'm going to click on the green check mark. If I bring this whole view, I want to kind of see it shaded so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to come down here to my view bar. I'm going to change this to shaded so I can see a little bit better what's going on. Okay, great. So now I have my topo surface in there. The next thing I want to do is divide this so that you can see the streets and things. You'll notice right now I have that gray thing that's showing. That's because right now I can also see my mesh in there, and that's kind of making it hard to look at. So I'm going to query this. So it's the topography layer. So I'm going to hide and view that layer, and then that's going to make that go away so it's a little bit easier to look at. Okay, I'm now going to split up this surface I made. So I'm going to go to subregion, and now I'm going to outline my streets so that I can have a different color for those areas. So you can either pick lines using the green thing, and I can do this in my level 1 view too, so I can kind of see what I'm doing better. So you can either pick lines using the green line, or you can just retrace over. So I'm going to retrace over for a lot of these. It's mad that some things are a little bit off axis, but everything in the world is not perfectly on axis, so it's going to have to deal. I'm going to change this to wireframe so I can see all my lines, because right now some of my lines are getting hidden because they're dipping below my surface. I'm not going to go through and trace all these paths that are in the park. I think that's overkill. And again, this doesn't need to be 100% perfect. I'm just getting a basic idea of where the streets and paths are here. I'm just going to bring this one straight to the end instead of defining that extra street there. I'm not going to go through and define that or that. I'm just going to keep this straight. Okay, so these, to connect those, I'm going to use the trim extended corner. So I'm going to click on that, click on that. Because if I hover over here in the tab, it should select it as all one thing. So that's the road I'm highlighting. I'm not going to bother with that one. Okay, and then over here, I do want to show that the road continues. There's kind of a break in it, and then it continues. So if you look over here, right, it's got kind of a little garden, and then over here, it's got some parking. Actually, no, I don't really want to show that because that's kind of misleading. So I'm going to leave that alone. So I'm not going to show that as road. I'm just going to show those major roads as roads. So I'm going to click on my green. And so if I go into 3D view now, you'll notice I can select this separately, and then I can change the material. So under material here, I'm going to click on the 3 dots, and then I'm going to click on create new material, rename this to be a street. And diagrammatically, I just want that to show up different. So under shading, I'm going to change this to black. Okay. Under appearance, I'm also going to change the color to black. Hit OK. And hit OK. So right away, you see like those streets are now a different color. Everything else I'm going to make look like concrete for a minute. So over here under material, where it says by category, I'm going to click the 3 little dots, make a new material, create a new material. Right click, rename this. I'm going to call this concrete. You might already have a concrete. That's okay. Okay, so under graphics, I'm going to change this to be more of a tan. Okay, and the same thing under appearance, I'm going to make it more of a tan. Hit okay. Hit okay. Okay, so the last thing is that we do have some green areas around, and I want to make sure that those look different. I'll go back to my level 1 plan. I'm going to create those subregions again. And here I'm also not following exactly the lines that are on here because they don't look right to me. So I'm going to bring that forward and define that as one of my park areas. Then I know this was all park area. So I'm going to define all this as park area. And then the last park area, I know that this was all park area over here. And again, like I really think this is probably more likely to be even with the building front there. So I'm going to pop that over. I don't want it to intersect with my road, so I'm going to bring that over a little bit. And then this looks like it comes all the way out to the end. It probably comes to here. And so some of this is I'm guesstimating. I'm just getting it diagrammatically right for our purposes. And I'm imagining it comes out to the edge of this building. And then I'm going to close up my line here. Okay, I can hit my green check mark. So now if I go over here, those areas that have turned brown, I'm going to make green. So I'm going to click on those 3 dots, make a new material, create new material, right click, rename this green space. And then here under color, I'm going to make that green. I'm going to make the appearance here also green. And then hit OK. Okay, so our site plan is starting to look pretty good, right? I have in my, at least very diagrammatically, I have in where my green spaces are, where my plot areas are, and where my roads are. What's not represented yet are buildings, so I'm going to use a different methodology to represent those. So I'm going to go back to level 1, and here I'm going to go to a new tab, architecture, and go to component here, click down and click on model in place. So modeling in place essentially gives you a way to make something very flexible that isn't defined very well as a, it's just like you can make extrusions, you can make sweeps, you can make things that aren't like very well defined as a wall or as a door or as things that have lots of constraints in Revit. So if you need to make something kind of dumb, modeling in place something quickly, this is your place to go. So I'm going to come down to generic models, hit OK. And I'm going to call this building footprints. And then click OK again. Okay, so for my building footprints, I'm going to use extrusion. So under go to create extrusion. And then here I'm going to click. And so there's 2 ways I can do it. I can either draw out all my boundaries. I can hit tab to make sure I'm like actually able to select the exact dot that they're on. Tab is how you get to try selecting different things in Revit. So I can either do that, and then over here, my extrusion end, it's defining everything as level 1. So I'm going to go and my extrusion start, I'm going to have it as be -4 feet, so it's below level 1, and I'm going to have my extrusion end. Depending on the building, that'll be different. So let's look at this building over here, what we think it is. So if I drop in here, this looks like it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is like a 5-story building. It's tall, so let's assume that it's 10 foot per floor. So we're going to call that 50 feet. So we're going to have it go, if the extrusion starts at -4 feet, I'm going to have it end at 50 feet. And hit apply, and then hit my green check. Now if I look in 3D, you'll see we have the mass of that building there. And again, this is just a diagrammatic site model. This is not in any way 100% accurate. We're just trying to get things to look about right. You'll notice that the slope, it looks okay over here, but then it's kind of dropped off at this corner. So I'm actually going to drag down the bottom of that just so it's below my ground there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, at least for the buildings on this block. I'm going to ignore that one. We probably don't need the ones over here either. I don't think they're going to be part of our site plan, so I'm just going to focus on getting the ones right around our building. And let's look at our street quick to figure out about how high those are. So this lot is just empty. On this side, it looks like we have mostly 3 stories, so I'm going to make all those 30 feet. And then if I come down this way, this second block also looks like it's 3 stories. They look a little shorter to me than the main block, but I'm just going to keep that at 30 feet as well. You'll notice that like where I might want to change that is for this. The garage is clearly only 1 story, so I'm going to make that maybe 12 feet. So I'll give that its own volume there, but other than that, everything on these 2 blocks will be 30, and then that one was 50. Okay, so coming back to my Revit file, I'm going to go back to level 1, and now I'm going to go back to create extrusion, and here I can also use this pick tool. So I can pick out lines that are already on here rather than redrawing them all. And it might be mad because some things are overlapping or off axis. Again, not everything in life is on axis. It's fine that it's off axis. So I'm using my trim tool to clean up those edges. Over here, I'm still going to have my extrusion start be at -4. I'm not worried about what's under the ground. And I'm going to have my extrusion end be at 30 feet. And hit the green check mark. This is the garage that we were talking about. I don't think the garage is that whole footprint. I think part of that is the patio. So we might need to come back and edit that later. So let's say it looks, how far does this come out? It looks like maybe a little more than half of that is garage and then some of that's patio. So over here, I'm going to just estimate it. So create extrusion, tab. So let's say maybe that much of it is garage. And I'm only going to have that come up 12 feet. Hit my green check mark. Okay, let's keep making other buildings on this block. Create extrusion. Green checks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Green check mark. I forgot to change that to 30, so I can always select this, make it 30 afterwards. Okay, next building. Create extrusion. Pick lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Green check mark. Make sure this is at 30 feet, not 12. Okay, so create extrusion. I'm going to change this to 30 ahead of time this time. Okay, green check, green selector. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to use my trim extend tool to finish off that shape. Next one, create extrusion. Green picker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to use my trim extend tool to clean that up. Click the green check. Next one, create extrusion, green pick. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Green check. It's mad because it didn't connect there, so I'm going to use my trim connect tool here. Trim that out. Okay. 3 more on this block. We probably don't even need that many. I'll put them in because we're working on it. So create extrusion. Did I just do that one? Okay, 2 more. Create extrusion. Green check. Last one. Create extrusion. Green picker. And green check. Okay. There's a garage back here. So I'm going to create extrusion, but this one will also going to make only 12 feet tall. I'm going to just bring this back off the road. I don't know if the road is wrong or the building's wrong, but I'm just going to make it so they don't intersect. And that corner I have to finish off with the trim extend tool. Okay, and then also we might need some buildings back here that might show up. So creating extrusions for those, and again, those should be 30 feet. So one thing I'm not being careful about, again, because I'm not being super accurate in this model, is figuring out, based on the topography, what that 30 feet looks like. So on some of these, it might really look shorter because the hill is going down from here. So it's 30 feet from the ground level, but the ground level is lower. That's something I can refine later if it's important to me. In this particular thing, because we're just using this as like very diagrammatic, kind of like how tall vaguely are things around it, I'm not going to worry about it. Create extrusion. Okay, so let's at least do 3 buildings going this way. And last one going this way. It's 2 more, I can match it out. Okay, last 2, create extrusion. Sorry, this part, modeling can get kind of tedious sometimes. But it is nice to have something that feels complete. Okay, so now if I look in 3D, I should have all the things that are close to my building. So my actual building's over here, right, which is not all that close to these other ones, but it's in there. So now that I have all this in there, I'm going to click Finish Model. Okay, before I delete out this this reference that I don't need anymore because I have everything I need from it already, I want to at least put an outline of my building so I know about how big it should be. So I'm going to go to level 1. And here I'm going to trace in just in detail lines. So again, detail lines are something that's not in 3D. It's something that only exists in this level 1 view. I'm going to trace out in detail lines that outline of that building. So I'm going to go to architecture, or sorry, I'm going to go to annotate, detail line, use my green picker again. And here I'm just tracing in these lines so I know what the extents of my site are. Okay, I'm now ready to delete out that model I had imported in. So if I select it, I can hit delete. You'll notice my topography isn't showing up at all in my level 1 plan. That's because each of these plans is a slice of the model, and how far it looks is dependent on the view settings. So if I come over here to floor plan under properties and go down to view range and edit it, I can set my view depth to be unlimited and hit apply. I thought that would make it show up. Interesting. What if I make unlimited for the bottom? Okay. Still not showing up. Okay. Oh, it might be that topography is not turned on here. So if I type in VV, as in Victor Victor, I can come over here and scroll down and turn on this little check for topography. Click OK. And now that's going to show up. You'll notice at a certain point it cuts off because the slope is going up this way, and at this point it's above where I would actually see in my model. So if I zoom in a little bit, you'll see like that. That shows me that I'm basically cutting through the earth at that point. Okay, great job. So I think that's all we're going to have for site here. I'm going to go ahead and crop down this site view so that we're not looking at so much stuff, and I'm going to change my view settings so that you're not looking at so many things again. So one thing is I don't want a static project base point here. I don't need to. So I'm going to click on this, right click, and hit hide in view category. Click on this one, survey point, right click, hide in view category. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop in this view. So again, I'm on site. So I'm going to come over here and hit show crop region. Click on this crop region. It's that like a rectangle that showed up and there's little bubbles that show up. I'm going to drag these in and bring them just around where I know my building is. So I just want to have a little bit of site context. I don't want to include too much here. So that's the beginning of the park. That's the park across the street. That shows the big multifamily across that way. We'll come a few more houses this way. Okay, so that's all I'm going to show for my site map, just some super basics. I want to change some of the visibility settings on here so that I can actually see the different regions I made. So over here, I'm going to go from hidden line and change it to shaded. So that's going to show me the buildings, the green spaces, the street. And I can go in and make these look a lot nicer, right? Because right now, like these colors are a little bit, I don't know, a little bit too pungent, a little bit too much. So I think there's a few different ways to do that. I think I can actually do it under here, under graphic display options. I can put my transparency up and hit apply, and maybe make it 80% apply. And so that already started to look like a much nicer site plan. Hit OK. So for my site, it looks like yes, this looks odd to me that there's this much room in between my building and the street. Is that real? Oh yeah, it's just a super wide sidewalk. Okay, cool. So notice that this will change when we put our building in, but I kind of want some of those building lines on here just for the moment. So I'm going to go back to level 1 where I trace this in. I'm going to hover over it so it turns blue, hit tab. So I have that whole thing and do Control C. Go back to my site plan and hit paste, align to same place. Then over here under line style, I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it a Y line. Right now, I think everything is showing up as thin lines. So if I type in TL, as in like TL, is that making any different? No, it was already in thick lines. Okay, so if you zoom in, you can see that the line is wider. But I'm going to actually make this even more, to stand out more, so I understand that this is the site I'm concerned with. So I'm going to make a filled region. So I'm under my annotate tool, and this is a 2D thing again. It will not show up in any other view. I'm going to click on filled region. Over here, put on wide lines. And I'm going to trace in, and actually I'm going to pick lines so I know that I'm tracing exactly, I know that I'm exactly picking lines that are already there as opposed to making something that's like a near miss. Okay, so I'm selecting those. I'm going to hit my green check mark. And so that's going to create a filled region at that site. I want to change this. I'm going to make it solid black. You'll notice that because of my display settings, this is still not showing up as solid black, which annoys me a little bit. So let me see if I can fix that. If I go over classics by view, by element, let's see if I can change the surface pattern. I don't know if it's going to work. Hit OK. Hit apply. Let's see if this does anything. No, that doesn't really do anything. I don't know if there's a way for me to do that. So maybe I'll change the color and make it red instead. So if I go here to edit type, I can duplicate this and call it solid red. It'll show up pink because everything is transparent, is a little bit more transparent. And I'm going to make my foreground fill color to be red. Hit OK. And then I want to make sure it's masking. Hit OK. And that's still not showing up right. That is really interesting. Edit type. So this is under solid fill. Maybe I'll make my background as well. This should make a difference. I'm going to click on VB. So this is where I can control how everything shows up. So if I go to annotation categories, it does show them in this view. And what does it say about filled regions? So if I look down at cancel by element. Oh, it's because I did that. So I'm going to have no override. Now hit apply. Okay. So because I had overridden it, that's why that happened. Okay. So now I have that in red, so it should stand out a little bit more. Sometimes I want even like a thicker line surrounding that, so I can create new kinds of lines. To do that, you go under, it's like under manage. So manage, additional settings, line styles. So these are all the kind of line styles we already have in here. You can create a new one and call this like extra thick dashed. Okay. And so this one, I could make this like, I don't know, 10 thickness. I could make it a dash line, dash 1/8, hit OK. So if I go back to edit boundary, hit tab, so everything turns blue at once, and then I could select this and change it to extra thick dash, and hit my green check, and now you'll see that I have like this extra thick dash kind of surrounding that and making it clear that that's my site. Okay, so now I have a pretty clear site model, but one thing I might want to add to this is some information about what street names are. So to do that, I'm going to go to annotate, go to text, click and drag, and here I'm going to type this street in. So let's figure out what the street names are. This one is East Fairmount Avenue, so East Fairmount Ave. And then I also want to name this street, so I'm going to go to architecture text, or sorry, annotate text. And this one is North Washington Street. So you'll notice it's not letting me, I have to, let's see if I rotate this way, if it'll be happier. Yep, I can do that. So I can rotate that way and move this onto the street. This is just a dumb piece of text. Okay, so now I can see the two streets that are on there. I don't really like the way that these are showing up with those white backgrounds. So to change that, if I go to edit type here, I can change the background to be transparent. Hit OK, and it'll change for both of those. Okay, so this is all I'm going to do with this for now. Actually, the size I'm going to change here. So under properties, I'm going to change my size to 1/16. And I'm still pretty happy with those text sizes. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to save my file. For the end of tutorial 1, please take a screenshot of this. So if you go to snipping tool, new, grab a snip of this and save it and upload that to Canvas to show that you completed this tutorial. Thank you.